Okay. So a couple of things. So if you're watching the recording, if you're watching this live, which I see there are a few of you, we might get one or two more. Exam 3 is up, so I'm hoping that some of you will watch the lecture, and I did. It should be pretty clear. Exam 3 is due today, but because I wanted to fix some things and I took a lot longer to post it, and it's due today, but if you finish it in the next few days, I won't consider it late, right? I'm going to give you the next few days to sort of like figure everything out. If you're behind or something like that, just email me. This is going to be the last like lecture day where I introduce new material. So we're going to do modernization theory because we talked about it a lot. So I want to really get into what modernization theory kind of is. We talked about it before. So this is a bit of review, but also gives us a good chance to really understand modernization theory. One of the big things about modernization theory is that a lot of people don't agree with it, right? There's a lot of attacks on it. So I'm not introducing this. When I introduce a theory to you, right, contract theory about taxation, when I talk about, elite fracture, or Scotchville's theory on social revolution, or right when Geddes talks about selection on the dependent variable, all of those are arguments, but they're not, right? This is not a concrete, this is the way it is, right? I never want you to take that from any of my lectures, and hopefully I've made that fairly clear. These arguments compete, right, in sort of what we call the marketplace of ideas, and people pick them up, right? We are a Keynesian society economically, right? We spend our way out of problems, but that isn't the only way, right? Hayek gives us an alternative. I'm not suggesting either is better. I need you to know them, right? Because later, for those of you who are political scientists, modernization theory is going to come up. And if you say, yeah, you need to go through this process of industrialization and specialization and along this chain to become a developed society, people are going to come with attacks. And so you need to know the theory, you need to know the attacks. And if you're like, no, there's agency, right? People have their own will. Agency is where people sort of make decisions about what's happening, and they should have a say in that process, right? Or, right, that is very culturally biased, or you don't need industrialization to have, right, a democracy and a politically developed society, right? Industrialization is something of the 20th century. In the 21st century, we can have a service economy, which means we don't have to have organization, right? One of the weird things about a service economy that we're seeing in the 21st century is instead of having to organize all of these people together because computers are handling the coordination, because, right, logarithms and sort of computers and, right, programs are setting up how we interact, how we move, right? We're actually having less organization, less communication, right? One of the things we're seeing now is people are so specialized, but their coordination is handled by a computer, no person, just a computer handling it, that we're incredibly disconnected from our other employees, right? If we look at Postmates and Uber and rideshare, all rideshare employees, right, they're not connected to other employees and they're not connected to their companies. So we're actually having more disconnect in the 21st century. And you don't need industrialization if so many of the jobs are run by tech and the tech is so available, right? Technology is so available in most places, right? Obviously there are exceptions in very, very poor countries. But laptop computers are getting cheaper and cheaper. And there are specific laptops that are sort of what we call rugged, right? Sort of laptops that you can drop them, they won't break, they last, right? Low power, low information, but they still work, right? And so this expansion to technology really changes. So maybe modernization theory worked until the 21st century, but it doesn't work anymore. And so you need to know the theory so you can critique it, and you need to know the critiques, right? And so that's for the political science majors. For the non-political science majors, there should be some clear logical concerns here, right? And critical analysis skills that you can develop in this process. So I want each group to have a little benefit. The paper is due next week, so at the end of this class, we're going to talk about, is your paper ready? Have you picked your 3 sources, right? Have you read the rubric, right? The rubric will make it a lot easier because it's going to tell you exactly what I want, right? The rubric will say, this is what I want. This is how many points each section is worth, right? And that's one of those things that I always take pride in, is that I'm going to tell you how to get the points, right? And you should never be confused about how to get points in my course, how to get an A in my class. It should be very, very clear. Now, how much effort you want to put in for that, right, is really connected to you, right? There's no time limits on my exams, right? So most of you should be doing very well because you could find every answer. So always take that into account. The final exam is going to be similar to that. The only difference is because we have to get grades back faster, there's no essay and there's no extra credit in the final exam. It's just all multiple choice. And that's not my preference. It's just if Friday is the day you're turning it in and I have to submit grades Monday, there's no room for an extension. There's just no room for an extension if I have to grade. But if you need to call me or you need to email me and say, hey, I need a moment to get the final in, I'm going to on Monday close the final. But that is only because an hour later I'm going to submit grades. So if you're watching this recording, right, I'm going to give you as much time as I possibly can, and then at that last moment I have to submit grades. And if you feel like you need an incomplete, that's something we can discuss. But as far as like I have a C, I want to go to a B, I just don't have the time. My department, the Monday after finals, I have to submit because many of you are graduating, and so, well, some of you are graduating, but many of you have to end the semester on that day. And so at that point, right, we want to make sure that we're in a position to actually submit grades, and so there has to be a cutoff. Now, remember, the quizzes are open, the assignments are open, right? None of you have done poorly in the course yet because you can make everything up, you can fix everything. So make sure you're checking all the assignments, make sure you're checking everything that's due, and get everything done. The only thing that you could have everything done by tomorrow if you wanted to, right? Or depending on how much energy you want to put into this. And then on May 1st, which I believe is a Saturday, let me check. Yeah, so May 1st is a Saturday before finals week. The final exam will open. It'll be open for 9 days, 8 days. Because I have to close it at some point. Like the university, like their policies about that. So over the weekend after finals week, it'll close, but you should be done. Most of you should be done with the course. You should know what your grade is. There shouldn't be any questions, right? I've written this out to be worth 100 points. So if you have 93, you have an A. If you have a 92.6, you have an A, because I round up, right? So if you're stressed about your grade, right, that is something we can discuss, but I have a ton of extra credit, way more extra credit than I've ever offered, just because teaching this type of course, this really should be an in-person course. And I knew that you weren't going to come into class, but also there were technology problems, right? So there's so many opportunities. I think you can get 110% in this class, right? And so there are a lot of opportunities to do that. There's actually another extra credit opportunity, right? That I thought I assigned the short dependency theory paper, but I always like what short means to me and what short means to you is very different. And so the dependency theory paper was much longer than I expected you to cover. And then the last two readings, there will probably be a small extra credit there, just in case you want to get into identity, or that was something that you wanted to put on your paper. There will be an extra credit opportunity there as well. So right, we're getting near the end of this. This is the last new material lecture. Next week, I'm going to do this is what I expect on the final review for the first section. About the first section, it might lead us into the second section of next Friday's course. And then we're going to discuss like all of the things that need to be done, because then I'll have how many papers do I have in, how many of you are doing poorly, how many of you have an A, right? And right now I think I have like 8 or 9 students who have an A, right? And so I expect that actually to go up after the paper, right? As long as they turn in the paper, and just make sure that you're doing all the things you need to do. The final exam is 60 questions, 60 multiple choice questions, because it's worth 15%. There's no time limit. So if you're doing poorly and you need to come up, right? Remember, I'm covering old material, so the questions are going to be very similar than the old questions. The concerns you're going to have are going to be very similar to the old concerns. And so look at the other old quizzes, look at the old questions, and you should be able to get a clear answer on the final exam. It is sort of randomized, so there's a slight randomization, which I don't love, but I wanted you to be able to have some new questions, but also some like old questions. And so if you're taking a test with someone else, you may not be getting the same questions. Now, here's the thing. There's no way to cheat on the final exam. I mean, there's literally no way to cheat on the final exam. I know that some of you have not had an opportunity to work with other students, and so the final exam, you can go to any resource you want at all. There is no way to cheat, right? You can notes and slides and lectures and the readings and other people in the class. There is no way to cheat on the final exam, right? I guess you could like write a computer program that hacks into the, like breaks into the web, and then that would be cheating, but also that would be a crime. So anything that's legal is acceptable to me. Right, make sure you're doing the best that you possibly can. And if you're having trouble, communicate with me, because you might be surprised at how open the exam is. That being said, exam 3 is still open. So if you haven't taken it, make sure that you do. Even if you're watching this, I know it was due today, but if you're watching this now and you didn't take exam 3, make sure you go back and take it. If you did poorly on exam 2, I have given everyone a second try, right? So there are 2 tries, right? So if you don't like the grades you got in exam 2, you can go back and retake it, right? And I just added a second. Now you only get 2 opportunities, so don't open it and then close it, because it might take that as the second opportunity, or however it works for your web browser. It works a little differently on my end. So exam 2 and exam 3, right? One is not closed yet. Make sure you do that. And exam 2, right? Make sure that you if you don't like your grade, if you did very poorly, you can go back. You can look at my notes, right? I commented. I gave a lot of comments on your exams to explain things, to explain why you didn't get full points. And so there are so many opportunities that all of you could still get an A in this class. I think I had 1 person drop, so that's the only person who can't get an A, right? All right, so I took a little more time than I wanted. Let's get into modernization. We're actually going to talk about the course again next Friday, but I think it's pretty clear that what you need to do and all the things that are possible. Why? Oh, come on. Are you fucking kidding me? This is so unacceptable. Oh! Okay, I apologize. If you're watching the recording, hold on.